Good morning, and thank you for registering for today's webinar entitled AI and Copilot, Transforming Your Hotel, Practical AI for Every Department. And it's all about discovering how AI and Microsoft Copilot are transforming hotel operations. Welcome. My name is Jane Pendlebury. I'm the CEO of HOSPA, the Hospitality Professionals Association. It's Thursday, the 18th of June, and it's 10 a.m. And England won their first World Cup match against Croatia with 4 goals to 2 last night. So let's hope they keep up this winning theme and the hospitality venues can generate lots of energetic crowds to watch and celebrate together whilst they eat and drink. Let's hope so. I'm very grateful to Hotality for helping us pull together this webinar today, and I'm delighted to be joined by Mike Ushak. We'll be chatting for around 20 to 25 minutes with time for questions after that. So we should be finished by around 10:30 a.m., depending on how many questions we get. Please do ask questions throughout. At the bottom of your screen, you might need to click on more. There is a Q&A option, so put them in at any time. We will get onto them towards the end probably. And if there's not enough time to answer the queries, we'll get back to you separately afterwards. The webinar is being recorded and we're happy to share the link afterwards, and it will be available on our website as usual later this week. There's our introduction sorted, but I'm going to hand over to Mike now to introduce himself and give you a little bit of background on him, who he works for, and what Hotality offers. So over to you, Mike.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for having me. So my name is Mike, and I work for Hotality. I'm an operations manager there. Hotality is a managed service provider for IT solutions, and we are almost exclusive for hospitality and working with hotels. So we provide any sort of IT support for any systems that the hotel use, and my role, coming from a hospitality background, so I've worked for over 15 years in hotels on various positions, so I kind of understand the daily sort of the daily process and how everything works. And now working with from the IT side, sort of trying to connect the two worlds together. So maybe the non-too technical people and the hotel side, and then the technical guys on our side, and just try to be the link in between. And with AI, my journey started probably a year, maybe a year and a half ago, when it started coming to sort of to life for everybody. And as I progressed, I noticed that there is not much dedicated for hospitality specifically, ways how to use AI, how to embed it, and examples. So I kind of started coming up with things myself, and I think that's probably why we are here today. Also part of the reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk a lot about AI at HOSPA, and it's been a topic at the conference for a good few years now. But I think there's a lot of misconceptions. So I think just so that people listening know what we're going to be talking about today, can you define, for today's purposes, what AI means and sort of what you'll be talking about today with regard to AI?
Yeah, sure. So there's obviously AI is all around us. We hear about it all the time. You can't just turn on the TV or radio these days without hearing about it, right? But what it actually is for us on a day-to-day basis, and how it kind of integrates into our lives. It's like a good way to think about it is like it's a well-trained assistant. So it's not something out of a science fiction movie that's suddenly going to turn up and do the job for you, right? It's not a robot, and it's just a tool in a way, even though I'm dehumanizing it a little bit here, and it's not right, but it is treating it like an assistant that still needs your input, but it can analyze data much faster, right? It will work from your documents, emails, but it will need your instructions as well. So that's the kind of way to look at it. It's a tool that will help you work smarter and faster, but it requires your constant input, and it requires you to verify everything that it does. The way it works is the more time you spend with it, the better it will become. So it's a similar analogy is like a chef, for example, who is cooking thousands of dishes, and by repeating that process and creating new dishes, and it discovers new flavors, new ways how to connect things. The same AI will work with you within your environment, and it will learn how you work, what you use, what helps you, and what not, and you will guide it. And by this, you will discover ways how it can actually shortcut things that you do. Maybe there are some tasks that it can improve, and you might discover that there are some tasks that you still do better yourself and you don't need it, right? But that's the point of having an assistant. So you can outsource the things that it can do for you, and you can concentrate on the things that are more important. And specifically today, I just want to highlight this, that we'll be looking at Copilot, right? It's a big and important thing because there's multiple different AIs around. So there's ChatGPT, there's Claude, there's Gemini. The main difference with Copilot is that it's already embedded and integrated into the 365 tools and environment that we know and we use. And if you're a Windows user, you will already have a Copilot button there. It is so there's a slight difference between this. So there's the Copilot generally available for everyone, and you can use it, right? But it will fall under the same security restrictions that we'll cover a bit later as the ChatGPT and Claude. So anything you put into it will go up into the cloud somewhere and it will be used to train the AI model. With the licensed Microsoft Copilot, which is an enterprise grade sort of, it's an additional license that you purchase. So it will then give you an enterprise grade protection. So that means that that any information that you put in there is only held within your company. It's secure, right? And that any examples that we'll be giving today or yeah, anything that we'll be discussing is kind of based around that, because it's a big difference between those having that company protected, enterprise protected Copilot, right, that you can fully trust. And me, I use all the different AIs, but for work, I only use Copilot. So just to make that clear. And the benefit of that is that it lives within the environment that we know already, because we all use Word, we all use Excel, Outlook, and it's just another button that appears there that you can utilize.
Brilliant. I love that chef analogy. It'll get better the more you use it. That's brilliant. Um, when you mention ChatGPT and those other ones, it just reminds me that not very long ago, we didn't know what that was. We didn't know what Copilot was. And the progress has just been so rapid. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, just a couple of years ago, I think we wouldn't have been able to have this conversation. It would have been sort of, well, you may have done. I think I would have been too bewildered by it, but it's just everywhere now.
Yeah.
And I don't, as you say, you can't go through a working day or even probably a social day without hearing about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the change is quite rapid, isn't it? In recent,
Yeah, it's very rapid and it accelerates. And obviously now, like I say, around 2023, I think when ChatGPT came to light, that was the sort of when the whole boom started, right? And since then, it's just been uncanny how quickly it progresses, and it's exponential as well. So it's because now, when you look at the news and all the news about the cybersecurity AI that's just been withdrawn by the US, and AI actually writing 80% of its own code now, right? So we are looking, this is a science fiction stuff. But the reality is that AI has been in the background for quite a while, even before it reached us in a form of ChatGPT. And when you could just go on a ChatGPT, and I remember like 2 years ago, probably just playing with it a year and a half and ask it for, to make a poem for me, read it as a voice of pirate, things like that. And you're thinking, wow, this is really interesting. And now suddenly we've got it everywhere. So it's in apps, it's in business software, customer service, it's in booking platforms. So for hotels, this is really relevant to recognize that the customers have been exposed to AI already for quite a long time. And even before the ChatGPT days, we've had chat agents. I mean, this was all versions of AI, right? Maybe it's now, of course, more advanced and it's getting better, but it was there. And the important thing is that the customers have been exposed to it and they learn to kind of expect it as well. So now if you're running a hotel, you might have that expectations from the guests that there will be some easy way to get things that they need, and AI will be just there to make things faster. Now, the next step to this will be to ensure that the teams at the hotel also benefit from the AI being around, and that it's done in a structured way and secure way. And I think that this is sort of the main point today that the hotels are at.
yes, and the people that are working in those hotels can take benefit from AI as well. I mean, I've heard lots of people who've given their AI assistant an actual name, so it becomes more and more human. But as you said at the beginning, there are limitations on what AI can and can't do compared to a human. And this is something I think where in hospitality we really win, because we're going to always want that human touch. But how do you see AI working working in a hospitality business when that human interaction is so important?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. So the way to look at it is, I mean, it really doesn't it doesn't matter if you give it a nickname, right? I personally don't, but I do have something that's called Mike's Digital Twin, which is an AI agent, and I think the names we will reserve for the agents as they sort of come into play, and that basically agent is a sort of targeted AI that you can give certain instructions to act like, I don't know, a legal paralegal to analyze contracts, for example, and it will just do the specific task, and you can call it whatever, give it a name, right? My digital twin, for example, is trained to, if I ask it, what have I missed, it will tell me what have I missed since 6 p.m. last night until 9 a.m. this morning from my emails, from my teams, from anything that sort of happened within my Office 365 environment. Obviously, it will not know my phone calls, but it will see any appointments or anything that came through, and with this, by giving it those instructions that stick, you don't have to ask it every time, can you please check my emails since, that from last evening until today. So it just knows. And this is the next thing. But in practice, what AI can do just on the sort of the basic level, so it can create drafts, it can find information very quickly, and organize data. So with this, it's a real game changer. So it can actually, once you have it in your 365 environment, you can ask it, can you find please, yes, sometimes you can do that. Yeah, can you find all the information relating to a certain project, right? And let's say the project spans over a year and a half, it's something long. It can actually go through your emails, your Teams messages, your files, and fish out everything related to the project. And what a time saver that is. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing that it can do. So it's not more about how you name it, but how you perceive it as a tool that can do things for you, and just explore those things that it can do.
Yeah. Fabulous. And perhaps we ought to talk about security because you're saying it's out there, it's looking at all this stuff and it's sending stuff up to the cloud all the time. So it must be, well, I know from talking to people, it's important to have a policy in place with some rules and regulations for, especially in a work environment, well, always in a work environment. So if you were talking to a hotel, what would you say they should put rules and regulations in for their teams and on how they use AI in the workplace?
Yeah, so this is extremely critical question, because as we know, since the dawn of GDPR and and the data protection, this is something that's always it's like a hot thing that you need to be really careful about. And the data, with AI, there's still quite a lot of unknowns. It's just there. You type things in the box like you used to type in your question into Google, but the difference is that you've not been pasting any information that might be that might be dangerous to share. And this is the same thing with AI. So at the very beginning, it's because people are using it, right? So even if you don't have the license, there it's available there. So we see examples of highlighted to our cybersecurity section, thanks to tools like ThreatSpike, for example. If somebody pastes information into ChatGPT that shouldn't be there, that includes, for example, a name, a phone number, an email address, right? We can see that, and it pops, the alert comes up, and you say, okay, person at reception at Hotel Y just did that. Do you want to flag it up to the management? And then we'll say, okay, well, this is happening. And now the next step will be you either embrace it and go with the licensed version, and then put the guardrails on your system internally, right? So that it makes sure that an HR person has access to the HR files and their copilot can access those files, but a person from another department can, and the same for finance, and so on. So that's sort of the next step. So if you're embracing it and if you're embedding it into your environment, the whole security layer comes as a back end that the users don't see, but that's the bit that the IT will do, and set it up. And for sort of the common things to avoid is any personally identifiable information that doesn't go in to AI. So you can't be sharing any of that. But what you could do, you can like room types, check-in and check-out dates, anything that's available on your website, for example, anything that's publicly available. This is absolutely fine. General guest preferences. That's all absolutely fine to put. So you wouldn't put a card number into Google, right? So it's the same rules apply. Anything that could identify anyone, that's off limits.
Yes, I think I've heard nightmare stories about people uploading CVs and all sorts of things.
Yeah, yeah.
From
And
there.
it's something to be mindful of because it's very easy, very easy to get excited and say like, oh well, I'll just ask it to do that for me, right? To analyze that CV for me, and but then this is somebody's data.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Mm.
So let's sort of drill down into practical solutions. So in your sort of typical hotel, have you got examples of where it's actually helped within the business? Say in front office to start with. What's actually working with using Copilot for the team on reception or in reservations?
Yeah, so something obviously having spent years working in reception and reservations, and and I know that there are common struggles. How many times a day are you asked the question, "What's there to do around here?" For example, or are there any nice restaurants around, or any each response that you need to draft an email, respond to a guest, right? And I'm talking about obviously emails. If you've got the guest face to face, you can still use it, but applies to both. If you're writing a response to a guest with a typical question, do you have parking facilities and things like that? All of this is just repeated over and over again. And sometimes using AI means that it can structure the email for you, structure the response, and create it for you within seconds, right? So if it took you 5 minutes, it might take you a minute or 2 minutes to just read that. Maybe you want to add something, maybe you want to tweak it because obviously you always need to review that content, right? But for those things, when it doesn't need to be too creative, because creativity of the AI is a completely different story, right? So that's if you ask it to do that. But if with things like that, the information that's already available, that's a real time saver. Across a day, it can really save hours. We're dealing with things like that. It can create welcome letters for VIP guests, for example, really nicely written itinerary, right, based on bullet points. And in reservations, if you've got any complex spreadsheet, like for example, group bookings, and it can, and Excel, Copilot in Excel is a real game changer. And that's really because we with word writing, and that's a very personal thing. Like some people let Copilot or AI draft things for them, and some people feel that it's not giving the same vibe as their writing does, so they don't like. But with data, with Excel, it's just such a quick analyzer, and we might have not dealt with pivot tables before. It will just do them for you. So that's where you really will see the benefit, and that applies to reservations, as well in that respect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I use it in Excel when you a formula that you don't use very often. It'll just help you, whereas before you went away and had to look it up again. So
Yeah.
that's front office. What about sort of food and beverage, kitchen, restaurant, bar? That sort of is it useful for them too? Have you seen that?
Yeah, so I mean, and then really sort of the limits of it come with the imagination and creativity of the person using it, right? So, but a very basic example that I always give is, for example, if you have a handwritten recipe or a menu, right? Snap a picture, upload it, transcribe it, right? So saved you quite a bit of time doing that, which you would normally want to do. You might have an idea, a draft of a menu of dishes that you want to do, but you would like to sort of make the wording a little bit relevant. Maybe it's a high class restaurant, like yours, and you want to have some tips on that, right? That it can help with that as well. And with sort of real life things like pairing wines, for example, if you don't have a sommelier to hand that can advise you what wine to pair with what. Like I don't drink wine, so I completely wouldn't have an idea. So that's I would go, and you normally go and Google it probably, but why you can now do it much faster with a question.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, and I guess that does make perfect sense.
Mm.
So that sort of ticks off sort of management of F&B. What about other operational areas and sort of senior management within the hotel? So say housekeeping. You touched on HR earlier, and those leadership roles as well. Is it useful for everybody in your experience, and is it used by everybody?
Yeah, I think that it's there's sort of how quickly it gets adapted. It depends on how much time people spend in front of the computer. So it depends also on the role. But I think as soon as it's discovered how it can help, for example, let's take housekeeping for creating SOPs, right? So SOPs is something that very frequently gets maybe you have an SOP that was created years ago. You would like to refresh it. You would like to make your SOP standardized across the property, and this is a perfect tool to do it. So for room cleaning, deep cleans, inspection, checklist, anything like that. So it can produce thorough professional documents, right, that you can then use. Maintenance reporting, I know it's a real struggle in many places, right? Because it's you have to keep a tab of the issues, and that's another thing that it could potentially help. And with HR, we mentioned, but similarly creating documentation, training materials, and back if you would be doing a training, it might be something. You might want to add a PowerPoint presentation to it, and before you would spend half a day doing it, and now you can just generate it. You just give content to, you just give the brief, the prompt, because it's all in how you prompt it, right? But you can do it very quickly. So just to add a little bit of extra. And in management, when we come to that, that's kind of where you experience it a lot, because managers do spend a lot of time in meetings, and the dreaded meeting notes and actions, and follow-up meetings that happen. With Copilot, you do get automated meeting notes for your Teams meetings, right? So you do have to enable transcription, but I personally found it a real lifesaver if you've got a meeting with a lot of stakeholders, right? Some of the things might be relevant to you, some might not. And to have the possibility after an hour-long meeting, then to ask Copilot, okay, can you fish everything relevant to my role, to what I do, and create an action plan for me, or create an action plan for my team, right? With action points and responsibilities. And then you can actually come back to that the next month when you've got another meeting, and just come back and review that. And I think that's a real benefit that you see firsthand. And again, preparing an internal communication reports, and I'll come back again to Excel here, right? Before you might have relied on having to go and ask the revenue manager to help with some data to analyze, but now you might be able to free their time up and do more of that yourself, just because it enables, just helps with the Excel skills.
Yeah, you've talked a bit about saving time. When you're out there in hotels giving them advice and helping them, do you have any, do you recommend any sort of particular measurements for success when using Copilot in-house?
Yeah, so the first thing you see is, obviously, it's time savings, right? So you'll see that's firsthand. Quality improvements and team satisfaction, and adoption, right? So it's good to take it kind of step by step, right? But you will see the time savings pretty much immediately, and that's a concrete, you just something that everybody can experience. Maybe encourage the teams to make a note of a task that they found AI or Copilot particularly helpful with, that saved them a lot of time, and spread it across the team, share it with the others, and tell them, so that way, by the word of mouth, right? It's That's how it spreads. Quality improvements. So this is slightly more subjective, because it depends on, obviously, on the type of property and your style. But you will also see that it's something that needs to be monitored. But you might see that your guest communication is becoming more consistent. There's fewer errors in reports, things like that. So this is another way to measure whether it works. And obviously less admin, less time spent on admin. Um, and then the final thing is probably team satisfaction, and how many people have actually embraced it and started using it. And with this, it might need a little bit of tweaking. Some people might need a little bit more training on it. But overall, if the team is satisfied, that means that you're on the right way.
Absolutely. And it sounds so easy when you're saying it, and I'm thinking, yes, I know it does this stuff. So first of all, I'm thinking we're missing a few tricks here in the hospital office, but that's another story. But for those that haven't got a policy in place, don't quite know what they're doing, have you got any sort of practical tips to people to get started if they're not already fully embraced and knowledgeable about what they're doing in their hotel?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the sort of the biggest barrier is really is not technical. It's just how people approach it, and maybe they kind of think, oh, I've got this great tool now. Great things will be expected of me. How am I using it? But actually, no. Don't just start small. Literally, just think of one task that you maybe find a little bit tedious, and then give AI a try. Maybe it can do it better, and just those little steps. So. The main thing is to be specific with your instructions. So that's one thing that I think it can put people off if they prompt is very general, like write an email, for example. It's not going to give a good result. So the art of the prompt needs to be part of that, right? So and the better you get with the prompts, the better results you will be getting. So I think that's another sort of a blocker that people say, well, I've tried it, but it didn't do what I wanted it to do. But maybe the question wasn't right. But there is something called the prompt coach within Copilot that actually can tell you what prompt to use to get the result that you want. So that is a really nice thing, and it's already there, and it's free to use. Once you've got the license, it's embedded, and actually asking AI how to ask it the question is the is the best way to do it, right? If you're not sure.
Yeah, God, that's madness, isn't it? Asking it how to ask. That's, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
bit,
yeah.
it's a bit
I know
bewildering.
it sounds funny, but the prompt coach is there for it, and Microsoft obviously if they're the ones releasing it, they have all the information, so they're the best ones to um take the knowledge from.
Yeah. Wow, that's absolutely fascinating. That there's a I didn't know about the prompt, the prompt coach. That's amazing. That's I shall have to look at that one. Um, So yeah, I guess in summary, AI is a tool that should enhance your work, make it easier, make it more efficient, but not replace your expertise. And I think that rings so true
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
hospitality and hotels more than probably many other industries.
Yeah.
And yeah, you said that there are real time savings as well. And I guess, as I say, I guess probably there's a lot of people listening today who are probably quite expert, but others who will maybe not have everything in place. And if they start small and build confidence, and yeah, the people, someone like you can give them some practical use cases. I'm sure it's
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and just to sort of circle back to the point you made about the human touch, and this is what hotels are all about, and we are not talking about replacing that, absolutely not. So the way AI, the place where AI comes in is in between. So you start the work, it helps you alongside, and you finish, right? So you add the human touches, and then actually by utilizing AI, you will be freed up to spend more time with the guests. You might be more on the floor, you will have a longer chat with them, but the personalization, the AI will not know your hotel, would not know all the things that the guests come down to your hotel for, right? That's the things that you are still there for. It is just to help you along the way. So the
yes,
human touch remains, and it's extremely important.
it is extremely. And I actually saw a presentation just I think last week about how if AI is being used properly and the hotel is becoming more and more and more efficient, actually you may end up needing more staff rather than rather than AI, people being scared of AI replacing what they're
Mm.
doing. So yes, and I guess a word of advice to anybody is that they must check everything, not just like shove it into AI and
Absolutely,
paste it. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, the human input is invaluable. AI is there like a tool, and that's how you need to treat it. But the output needs to be checked. Yeah.
Yeah. So we do actually have some questions here, so I'll try and read those. We actually also have somebody with their hand up. So if you could type your question into the Q&A, the person with their hand up, that'd be great. Thank you. So there are questions here on the difference between enterprise AI and just the AI, and it's around cost, and I'm sure that's not a straightforward question to answer. It's probably all about
Mm.
licenses and all sorts. So um, they can come to you, I guess, for support with that, or if
Yeah, so the person asking about the AI agents, I think that that's a question that I would need to just explore and probe a little bit more what exactly is meant in, and it probably also depends on which type of AI is used. You with Copilot, you do get agents built in, but it's not, it sort of reaches a certain level where you need additional licenses for certain things. So the basic agents are there. You can build your own agents. But I've sort of not reached a point where you would need to go higher than that, right? But yes, there are things there, and there will be additional licenses for that.
cool, thank you. And there's also a question about a confidential data,
Yeah.
and I think that goes back to your point about using the enterprise. So do you just want to
Yeah.
reiterate that point so that everybody understands about
Yeah,
you are
absolutely.
regulating? Yeah.
Absolutely. So just to make it completely clear, I would never upload or share the confidential data with any other AI. The only reason why I'm allowing Copilot to read my emails is because it is guaranteed enterprise protection, right? So Microsoft, that data already sits within Microsoft in a cloud that is already guarded by the Microsoft security, right? By adding Copilot into that environment, and the guarantee from Microsoft that that data is only used within the company environment, so it doesn't go out, I don't have any problem with Copilot reading my emails, right? Because it basically they don't go anywhere. Um, so essentially that answers the question. But if you're
Yeah.
connecting any other agent, if you could, there's other tools, there's other AIs that you can connect, plug into your Outlook, right? For those I can't vouch because that really case by case basis, and there are enterprise versions of other AIs as well, to be explored and to be used. Absolutely. There will be not so native to your 365 environment, so to your Office environment, but they should also be secure.
Yes, the final question, it is nearly time for us to wrap up, but the final question is about using different AI platforms. And I guess
Mhm.
that security thing's got to be your number one priority.
Yeah.
But the question specifically is almost like a best of breed type question.
Mhm.
Are there
Yeah.
the different AI platforms better for specific purposes? Or, and we're talking about Copilot today, so I guess that's going to be your answer. But
Yeah, so for the day-to-day task, yes, Copilot, and only because it's so easy, because it's already there, and you can use it from within your emails. It can see your files, right? For that, for the general consensus is that Claude, Anthropic's AI, is better for coding, and the race in AI game is on. So it might change from month to month. It might change, but I think for day-to-day stuff, Copilot is perfectly fine. If you're going for a more advanced thing, you might find that Claude is better, or Gemini is catching up now as well. So and that is true about the tokens as well. But that's I've tested Claude AI yesterday, and I've put a prompt in, and I use my free tokens within one prompt. So yes, it is something to consider as well. And been exposed to AI. We've kind of been shown, wow, there's this great tool, and it's amazing to use. But yes, it will get more pricey as well with time, I think.
yeah, okay. There are some more questions coming in. They're all around the same, but I think we're going to have to get back to the individuals on those questions because we're actually out of time. So if there's one anonymous, if that anonymous person wants to put their question in and let me know who they are, then we can get back to you directly as well. But we have actually just literally gone past 10:30, which is brilliant. That flew by. But as I always say at the end of our webinars, if you need formal advice, then please do approach your professional advisors or come to me at Hosper for a referral. And please let me know if you'd like to be introduced directly to Mike and the team from Hotality because they obviously know what they're talking about. So that's great. Please do take a look at hosper.org for other upcoming events. On Monday, we'll be celebrating the best marketers in the industry at the Hotel Marketing Awards. It'll be fun and an exciting evening at the Waldorf Hilton. So if you're not already booked into that, there are still some spaces. So please do come along to that. We also got a couple more webinars before the madness of the summer holidays kicks in, and hopefully the England doing well in the football. So everything's on the hospital website. Please take a look and register. But thank you, Mike, so much for explaining everything so
No, thank you. It
clearly
was a
today.
pleasure. Thank you very much.
Great. And thank you for all our listeners. And sorry we've gone over time, but we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Take care and thank you very much, everybody. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye-bye.